I've turned into a Squirtle. Mavi. Plot, characterization, conflict, psychic distance, tone. Squirtle. Can we perform an exegetic reading of a video game and identify these literary elements in it? Hello everyone, I'm Jake Steinberg and this is Catch My Drift, and today we're talking about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky. For the uninitiated, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games are role-playing roguelikes set in the world of Pokemon. But rather than capturing and training Pokemon as trainers, players become the Pokemon themselves. Go on adventures, explore randomly generated mystery dungeons, complete quests, and form teams with other Pokemon to solve mysteries and help Pokemon who need it. Now, if you've followed me for a while, you probably already know that I consider Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky one of my favorite games of all time. And in returning to it, in revisiting it, I think I've determined that a big reason it made such a strong impression on me when I first played it as a kid is because of how strong its elements of storytelling are. It's real clean in execution in the way that like animated kids movies are. It telegraphs its devices and strategies clearly without fear of like giving too much away. To demonstrate what I'm talking about, we're going to do a close reading of Explorers of Sky's opening moments. I think, identifying the building blocks of storytelling, and I think doing so makes clear how this kind of scaffolding is critical for the big storytelling moments, hours and hours later in the game, the big payoff moments, and how those moments are able to become so meaningful and we hold them with such like a high degree of sentiment years and years later. But don't worry, I won't be spoiling any of the big stuff. We are just gonna focus on like literally the opening minutes of the game. Okay, so our game begins by prompting the player to complete a personality test. The top screen of the DS ebbs and flows with a gradient of rotating colors like a pixelated lava lamp. Questions include things like, have you ever forgotten you bought something and bought another one? And, you're at a movie theater. What are you there to see? And I think it's worth noting here that most Pokemon games actually start with a similar contrivance. It's not a personality test, but there is a kind of fourth wall breaking introduction to the world of Pokemon. We're all familiar with like meeting a professor and them revealing a creature and telling you about the world you're about to go have an adventure in. But as I mentioned earlier, this game flips the script. Rather than being a trainer that uses a Pokemon, you are that Pokemon and work alongside others. So what's special about this game's story and setting is not the Pokemon. What's special is you. So to signal that, the first thing you encounter in this game is a questionnaire about you. You don't see a single Pokemon or the mention of one until you complete the survey. So let's ask ourselves, as a literary device, what does the survey accomplish? First, I think it's the meeting of content and structure. The content, it's you, the player, inhabiting a world of Pokemon, so the game must first establish the most important element in that formula, which is actually you. Second, it establishes tone, and I like to think about tone as the player's orientation towards the game's world and the psychic distance between you and what's actually happening in the game. So, the tone being set here positions the player's attention towards internal emotions and questions of the self. The game will have its own bespoke series of events, its own plot, but there's a nod to you and how you feel about those events. The game is prompting you to ponder, to be ponderous. And once the player completes the personality test, they are asked to hold their finger to the touchscreen so that the game can read your aura. This is silly, but it's about establishing tone. It's one of the first of like many moments in this game that they make a bid to the player to stop, contemplate, and breathe. It is positioning you to see the story in a specific way. And after all of this, the players are assigned a Pokemon based on their answers and even given some flavor text about their personality type. This plays absolutely no role in any aspect of the game going forward. The flavor text, what it tells you about what it ascertained about you and your personality, is entirely superfluous, but it is a tell in terms of what the game is concerned with and what it wants you to think about as you play. So after all of the setup, the game begins with this obfuscated cutscene. And ends with the player character washed up on a beach. This is a game that is concerned with mysteries and secrets, so it is only natural to start in a fashion that begs questions. Why is our vision obfuscated in that opening cutscene? Because you need to get used to living in mysteries. The scene then shifts to our partner Pokemon. We are showcased their moment before they meet the protagonist and the story really starts. This is an act of world building, okay? It helps the world and the characters in it feel lived in and pre-existing, which will later help us feel like the element that actually causes the world to change, for things to be different. We are the disruption, the raison d'etre of the story. The reason that the story starts now and today has to be because of us. Now, because we are the reason, the catalyst for change in the story, the scene that plays out here with the partner Pokemon is about adhering to the status quo. We see them here telling themselves that they can face their fears and approach this strange house, but they are, of course, unable to do so because they are locked into the status quo before they meet us.
I can't push myself to go in after all. I said to myself that this is the day, but...
Before moving on, we are introduced to the partner Pokemon's personal treasure, this mysterious rock that they have chosen to cherish even though they don't understand its significance. Now, if we define characterization as what makes one character different from everyone else, then I think you see that really quickly with their relationship with this rock, they find something sentimental and meaningful about this mystery, and they decide that this object is worth caring about. That makes this character different in this world.
I'm such a coward. This is so discouraging.
When the partner Pokemon exits the scene, we are introduced to a couple of villainous sounding Pokemon. I just want to note that they're introduced here. I'll talk a little bit more about them in a second.
Hey, Zubat! Did you get a load of that?
You bet I did, coughing.
That little wimp that was pacing around had something good, right?
That wimp had something, that's for sure. It looked like some kind of treasure.
Do we go after it?
We do. We do!
What I love about the next scene is how the game forces cuts in the dialogue just to take in the environment. It's about ambiance and setting a scene, but I think focusing on the world around us is a trick that makes us ponder our place in it. The world implies a question of belonging, and to make you ask that question, the game cuts to the world without any dialogue or direct thoughts. To make clear the raison d'etre, the partner Pokemon mentions that this act of coming to this location is part of their routine. They come here often, and the story justifies starting here, starting now, by having the disruption occur here and now.
Someone's collapsed on the sand.
Upon meeting, one of the first things the partner Pokemon says is,
"Well, you don't seem to be a bad Pokemon, at least."
To me, this is organic world building. If we define setting as awareness of the world or what is noticed about the world, something this character has been noticing recently is bad Pokemon. So a lot in this world is going to be different to us, to the player, but the bad Pokemon specifically is what they want us to flag, is what is unusual for the inhabitants of this actual world. And right on cue, the bad Pokemon we met earlier show up. So remember, structure is the organization of meaning. We see the bad Pokemon acting villainous in the last scene. We then explain the existence of bad Pokemon in the world, and boom, then we introduce those bad Pokemon into the scene again. This is good scaffolding. This is good storytelling. So our partner Pokemon, they fail their original test of bravery with that weird house. And then here the villains show up and the partner Pokemon fails again. They do not have the courage to face these characters after they steal its little treasure rock thing. But once the villains leave, the player agrees to help the partner Pokemon, and we are the catalyst for change as we chase down Coughing and Zubat together. Then we do the gameplay tutorial. As a brief aside, I like a few things here. One, I think it's incredibly clear what we offer to the partner Pokemon, not just in the story, but in the actual gameplay. It's power, baby. 2 Pokemon in a mystery dungeon are way stronger than 1, so we can feel how helpful we are as we mow down foes. And 2, I like how this game eases you into the mystery dungeon mechanics. They don't let you hold more than 1 item, and they just kind of tell you the bare minimum of what you need to know to get going. And finally, 3, remember how I said that this game is about living in mystery? Well, mystery dungeons reflect that. You have to be comfortable not knowing what is next because they are randomly generated, and you don't even get info like enemy health bars. It is about comfort within the unknown. Finally, when we catch up to Coughing and Zubat and fight them, it is very obvious in the boss fight how my partner may have had a really tough time. Maybe they couldn't beat these guys if I wasn't there. So we see our partner now tell the villains they're not a chicken, and we're able to defeat them. The world is officially changed because we, the protagonist, entered it. Okay, some closing remarks as we wrap things up here. The player character talks about losing their memory, wanting to uncover the mystery of their past. Meanwhile, this whole little episode was about getting the partner Pokemon's mysterious treasure back. So in the way that the partner cares for this weird rock, this strange object, simply because it is mysterious and they have injected sentimentality and meaning into that mysterious object, that personality trait is reflected in the partner Pokemon's relationship with you. The player has a similarly mysterious origin, and this Pokemon, this partner, says, I am going to care about you, I'm going to inject our relationship with sentimentality. But still, with all of this going on, the game, like I said at the top, is focused on the person beneath the Pokemon. So even after fulfilling the terms of the video game, the player character asks themselves in the text, I only helped because I happened to be there. Was that the right thing to do? Why would they ask? Why? Because this is a contemplative, mysterious game. Can you believe that we did all that? We did it. We covered like 5 minutes of a game. We spent so long. Dear viewer, I didn't even cover half my notes. So my plea to you is that next time you play a video game, just think about the choices being made. Everything you see is a choice. There was always an alternative choice. So just think about that. The next time you play any video game, it doesn't matter which, and just appreciate how all these cogs work together to make a coherent story. It's fun for me. I hope it was fun. I hope it was interesting for you. I hope maybe you learned something. I don't know. That's all I got this week. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. If you've watched any of my content, you have heard me give my argument for why I like these mystery dungeon games. People say that they're repetitive, and I'm like, how do you charge the mystery dungeon games with repetition, but you don't charge the normal Pokemon games with repetition? I would say the mystery dungeon games are less repetitive, but we can't get into that. We can't get into that. So I just want to focus on one thing that I normally don't focus on when I'm defending these games that all have bad reviews, by the way. People hate these games. One thing in the world of 3D Pokemon games right now, every Pokemon game's 3D. They're probably going to be 3D for the foreseeable future. We've got these models. That's what it is. Even the Mystery Dungeon ones. To go back to Explorers of Sky, like I am doing now, the sweet treat of seeing all of these little goobers, these little pixel art weirdo Pokemon guys. Some of them look great. Some of them don't look so great. But every so often, you get a little treat. Okay, I want you to look at this. Look at in this boss fight. Look at Coughing. Watch what Coughing does. You can't put a price tag on that.